Me? Okay. I'm a Sagittarius, which probably tells you way more than you need to know.
Yes, it tells us that you participate in the mass cultural delusion that the sun's apparent position relative to arbitrarily defined constellations at the time of your birth somehow affects your personality.
My name is Ray Couture. I'm a professional astrologer.
And how long have you been an astrologer?
Between 45 and 50 years.
Have you ever done anything like this?
Not in a group setting, but wherever I am, I look at somebody and say, "Are you a Pisces?" And sometimes they say, "Yeah," and sometimes they say, "None of your business."
All right, let's get everyone lined up. They're gonna stand behind you.
Between the months of February and March 2018, the channel Cut published a series of videos in which astrologers attempted to guess the zodiac signs of 12 strangers. The astrologers were Ray Couture and Shakira, and they both managed to correctly guess 4 out of the possible 12.
All right, raise your hand if he got you correct. Go ahead and turn around.
I'm afraid, but sure. And that's not too bad.
Who was the most obvious?
I don't know, none of them, apparently.
All right, raise your hand if she got you right.
I knew you was a Pisces girl. I knew you was a Libra, and I knew you was a Leo. I knew you were a Gemini.
Now, some believers in astrology have calculated that since there's 12 zodiac signs, that is 12 possible outcomes, and 12 people, that is 12 trials, the chances of correctly guessing at least 4 out of the 12 is a measly 1.38%, and that therefore we can reasonably conclude that there's at least some truth to astrology. The problem, however, and as anyone with even a rudimentary understanding of psychology and deception will tell you, is that Ray and Shakira were cheating. They were throwing loaded dice. This is Astrologers Guess Zodiac Signs Debunked. Whenever I touch pseudoscientific nonsense, such as tarot cards, channeling, homeopathy, crystals, mediumship, and astrology, someone at some point almost always asks me, why bother? If people are deriving comfort from it, then why shatter their illusion? Now, my answer depends on the specific drivel being pedestaled, but in general, it's because beliefs inform actions and actions have consequences. Not only does astrology, in this case, erode critical thinking and promote credulity, it also has all the hallmarks of racism. Seriously, it encourages believers to categorize people not according to the content of their character, but by the month in which they were born.
I think you're a Leo because you're a little aggressive. There you go.
Thank you.
That's exactly what she is, too.
Can I see your profile? Oh, okay. You're Scorpio.
What makes me a Scorpio to you?
The intensity.
I just noticed that Aquarius that I've come in contact with are very draining. They're very attention-seeking. They're very suffocating. It's very ironic that they are the air sign because they literally, I can't breathe. Thank you for getting out of my way.
Just as it's unfounded and reprehensible to assert that someone is aggressive, intense, or attention-seeking due to the colour of their skin, so too is it unfounded and reprehensible to assert that someone is aggressive, intense, or attention-seeking due to the date on which they were born. This simply isn't acceptable. In fact, it's despicable. Or to emphasise this point in a less potent way, here's how Richard Dawkins put it.
Day in, day out, astrological horoscopes get far more newspaper column inches than science. Amusingly, it falls foul of our modern taboo against lazy stereotyping. How would we react if a newspaper published a daily column that read something like this? Germans. It is in your nature to be hard-working and methodical, which should serve you well at work today. In your personal relationships, especially this evening, you will need to curb your natural tendency to obey orders. Chinese. Inscrutability has many advantages, but it may be your undoing today. British. Your stiff upper lip may serve you well in business dealings, but try to relax and let yourself go in your social life. And so on through 12 national stereotypes. Of course, the astrology columns are not as offensive as that, but we should ask ourselves exactly where the difference lies. Both are guilty of facile discrimination, dividing humanity up into exclusive groups based on no evidence.
Anyhow, let's get back on track. If there's a minuscule 1.38% chance of someone rolling 12 12-sided dice and correctly guessing at least 4 of the rolls, then isn't it more plausible to assume that there's some truth to astrology rather than that Ray and Shakira simply got lucky? The answer is that so long as the methodology was rigorous and peer-reviewed by a reputable journal, that is, that the dice were fair, then yes. But as alluded to earlier, this wasn't the case. Ray and Shakira threw loaded dice, and the study, due to it being made primarily for entertainment purposes, was abysmal. First off, while there's no scientific evidence for the astrological assertion that there's a relationship between celestial events and human personalities, there's plenty of evidence that links human personalities, allergies, and disorders to the month and particularly the season in which someone was born. To give just a few examples, studies have found that autumn babies are 3 times more likely than summer babies to have an allergy to milk and eggs, that spring and summer babies are significantly more likely to have an optimistic outlook, and that January babies are considerably more likely to suffer from schizophrenia, bipolar affective disorder, and recurrent depressive disorder. And so by simply asking a few seemingly irrelevant questions, someone can subtly coax a great deal of information. For instance, if I asked you, do you have any allergies, and within your answer you reveal that you're lactose intolerant, then I can infer from this that there's a slightly higher chance that you were born in autumn. And if I combine such insights with clues given by your physical appearance, body language, reactions, and micro-expressions, then I stand a much higher chance of correctly guessing your star sign. In fact, as a quick side note, here's Ray changing his mind precisely due to a reaction.
I'll go with Virgo. I'm changing that to Libra.
Why?
He accepted it too fast. I have to watch how people act, too.
And this actually brings us perfectly to cold reading, which is the name given to an array of techniques which include the aforementioned, that enables the reader to subtly obtain information and create the illusion that they know much more about the person they are reading than they actually do. But before I expose the astrologer's cold reading, I want to lay a few more things on the table. The first is that if you're seriously interested in the techniques used by charlatans and illusionists and want to know more than what's currently on screen, then I highly recommend that you check out Holy Kool-Aid series on the topic, because it's damn awesome. And if you still want more after that, then be sure to digest the works of the one and only James Randi and the outstanding illusionist Derren Brown. And speaking of Derren, here's a question which pertains to one of his feats. What are the chances of him correctly guessing the profession of a random stranger on the street? For brevity and argument's sake, let's be extremely conservative and assume that there's only 100 professions, and that therefore he only stands a 1% chance, which, by the way, is already less likely than fair dice guessing 4 out of 12 people's star signs.
Do you know who I am, what I do?
No.
No, great, but I think I can tell you what you do for a living. Look at me, it's people, it's PR, it's marketing, it's that sort of thing.
Yes.
Is that what you do?
Yes.
And now let's ask what the chances are of him correctly guessing 4 out of 12 strangers' professions. The answer is an incredibly implausible 0.000004%, or in other words, pretty much impossible.
You look for people's skills, you put them in positions. It's some sort of headhunting, is that right? Recruitment, that sort of thing? What do you do?
Recruitment consultant.
It's fashion, it's an assistant in a shop. This is a fashion, specifically denim, yeah? You were selling denim, you're selling jeans, is that right? You were doing that and you haven't done it for a while. You recently come out of that job, is that right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Absolutely right, yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh my god.
Now, if Derren asserted that he achieved this miraculous result due to tarot cards, astrology, mediumship, channeling, or any other method, would it be logical to simply accept his claim? No. Unless Derren was to provide objective, repeatable evidence of correlation, we wouldn't be able to infer causation, and so we'd have to conclude that while he used some method to achieve this result, it isn't the one he's told us. Luckily, however, Derren is awesomely upfront about most of his techniques, and has clearly stated and explained numerous times that he uses cold reading.
Open your eyes. Take this guy, his walk, the gum chewing, the long coat. He's confident, streetwise detached. He's protective of his girlfriend, so he's aware of the danger around him. His hair tells me he's not in the forces, so I'd say he's a journalist. Workmates. The woman on the left, she's wearing nighttime gear at lunchtime but has conservative hair and makeup, so it's only a work outfit. The rose means she's gregarious, so these two work in the PR end of high street fashion.
Anyhow, so how many examples do I have of Ray and Shakira cold reading? Well, I have plenty of Ray, which I'll show you in just a moment, but none of Shakira because she didn't actually cold read. Rather, she simply relied on the participants giving away their sign. You see, while I don't know exactly how Cut selected their participants, it's obvious that many of them already believed in astrology, and so either consciously or unconsciously wanted the astrologers to succeed, and because of this, they played up to their zodiac sign.
You got it right. You absolutely got it right, because I gave you fucking attitude.
Yeah, you gave me attitude, and I was like, yeah.
I gave it away when I said I was better than you. You're like, oh, damn it.
No, you gave it away when you say you don't like to go out or do anything fun. So you're a Capricorn, I think?
I know. I think I gave you the wrong impression when you asked me if I'm driven.
And further evidence of this can be seen by how many of them immediately gave the astrologers an excuse for failing to guess their sign.
So you got me wrong, but my mother is a Virgo and we're very close. So you might be feeling her presence.
Could be because you're a Cancer and you carry your moon with you and you carry your mother with you.
Well done, Ray. Great repackaging.
You're very warm, and when you don't feel good, you get a little needy, and so you call mom.
And that's why the girls run away.
I cannot believe you were Cancer.
Well, you were kind of going on the right track when you were talking about the sex drive and everything. Should have just paid attention to the 6.
And the 9. That's good. That's a good one.
I'm an Aries, and you guessed me as a Taurus.
Guess you're a Taurus.
I was born April 19th, so I'm at the cusp.
So if it's near the cusp, from Aries to Taurus, you'll have Taurus qualities as well as Aries qualities, and so that turns out to be your problem.
Her problem? Give me a break. Now, as if the fact that the astrologers got to see the participants, ask them questions, and analyse their reactions wasn't enough to invalidate the study, which it is. The fact that many of the participants wanted the astrologers to succeed is the nail in the coffin. Game over. But since I haven't yet delivered on my promise of exposing Ray's cold reading, here's just a few examples.
Do you have any advice to him being an Aquarius?
Yeah, he's in the middle of an eclipse for the last 4 or 5 months, struggling with this whole process of how you're going to deal with this.
It's not wrong.
Seems personal, right? But it's not. It's a Barnum statement. Almost everyone has been struggling with something over the last 4 or 5 months, be it their health, their job, a relationship, or their financial situation. It seems like Ray said something specific and personal, but he didn't.
Didn't you have difficulties until you were about 18, feeling worthless or not valuable?
Yeah.
Now that's a classic Barnum statement. I mean, who didn't feel worthless as a teenager?
It was in college. You ran into somebody who told you how great you really are.
Yeah?
And
who didn't have someone tell them that they're valuable?
Well, when I know what time and so forth, I can really figure this out. But, you know, just the sun sign is a little hard.
That a boy, Ray. Tell her that you know this information because you correlated her time of birth with celestial bodies, rather than that you simply made a demographically tailored Barnum statement.
I met my biological mom when I was 19.
Ah.
Oh my God.
You met her.
Yeah.
And then she said, I love you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like kind of stunned right now.
Wow, how did he know that? Who'd have known that a mother who's never seen her child still loves her child? Look, I mean no offence to any of the participants, and I genuinely mean that, but this really gets under my skin. Charlatans exploiting the credulity of others to promote their services and elevate their ego triggers the fuck out of me. But that's a topic for another time.
How tall are you?
6'1".
Are you an artist?
I am.
Wow, what a guess. I thought he was a bricklayer. I mean, that scarf screams bricklayer, don't you think?
You pick up a newspaper article or somebody hands you something to proofread. First thing you see is what's wrong with it?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, Ray, he just told you that he's an artist, and you can tell from his appearance that he pays attention to detail. Come on, sir, even Shakira could have figured that out.
And your grandmother was really, really important in your life?
Yeah.
And here we have yet another Barnum statement. Most people consider at least one of their grandmothers to be important, and if the young lady had said no, then Ray could have simply flipped his meaning by saying, that's where the importance comes in. She wasn't there for you. And hence, it still would have felt like a hit.
Extremely important.
Yeah.
She took care of you.
Yeah.
You had to get what you needed from her because it wasn't coming from mom and pop.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the young lady's expression when she says yes, it's obvious that her grandmother means a great deal to her, and therefore it's likely that her grandmother at least somewhat is a parental figure. Again, it seems like a hit, but all Ray has done is used a Barnum statement and then capitalized on her reaction.
So what time were you born?
6:15 a.m.
6:15 in the morning, Taurus. Sun just came up, it's your Gemini rising. There's some unfinished business that's been sitting around for a while. You're actually thinking of school again.
So, despite Ray making out that he's made that inference from the time and date of her birth, he's actually made it from the fact that she literally just told him a few moments ago that she didn't go to college.
Where did you go to school?
I did not go to college.
And he's made the reasonable assumption that someone who's quit education would consider going back. He's repackaged information and made a highly probable guess.
You see your hand. So you're an independent thinker.
Yeah. Gee, who would have guessed that a transsexual is an independent thinker? Of course they are. It takes tremendous courage to be who you are when society doesn't entirely accept you. Also, who doesn't consider themselves to be an independent thinker? Yet again, Barnum statement.
What's your birthday?
December 24th.
So you've already gone through, I won't call it a near-death experience. You were hanging on the edges for a while about 3 years ago, or maybe even 4. You did the right thing. You had to do the right thing.
Is it referring to your divorce?
I think so. Wow. Again.
Okay, this is the last one because I can only take so much bullshit. If you remove the metaphorical fluff, all Ray said is that she went through a traumatic event several years ago, and yet the audience reacted as if he somehow knew all about her divorce. He didn't. And what's more, who didn't go through a traumatic event several years ago? And, again, who didn't experience turmoil as a teenager? Anyhow, before I wrap up, and on a completely different note, if you're interested in podcasts and you're a science enthusiast, then please check out the Here and How podcast, which is hosted by myself, Rachel Oates, and Thomas Westbrook. And if you enjoy it, please consider rating us on iTunes. It really helps out. As always, thank you kindly for the view, and an extra special thank you to my wonderful patrons and those of you who have donated via PayPal. Slowly but surely, we are together making the world a more rational place. Thank you.
Here's the thing. If you want a clumsy tool to divide the population into distinct groups so that you can make predictions, racism is way better than astrology. In fact, if you remember nothing else from this gig, if you wake up with everything else thump out of your head, remember just that fragment, even out of context, where I went, racism is way better than astrology.